All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exciting interview. I'm actually have who I think one of the greatest advertising executives of all time is my dad, Don Peppers, uh, historical figure in advertising and marketing to some degree. He's written about in textbooks. He's written many books himself, and he had a big career in advertising in the 80s and 90s. So welcome to the channel, Dad. Nice to have you on. We've been talking about this for a while, and now that Tesla's finally acknowledged that they'll try some advertising, I figure it was a good time to get you on to just talk about things. How's it going, Dad?
Thanks, Emmett. I'm fine. I'm happy to do this. Good idea for
Good.
Tesla. I mean,
Yeah. So, I mean, you're past your prime. I think you would agree in terms. You looked at me funny when I say that, but you were,
I did look at you funny just now.
you still have a lot of insight. I mean, you had an incredible career. We all peak at a certain time, and I probably have already peaked myself, and I'm on my way down. But you had an incredible 1980s and 1990s career, and maybe 2000s with your consulting company. But in terms of advertising, the 90s, was that like your main? Do you think? Tell us about first. I guess tell us briefly how you got involved with advertising to begin with, if you don't mind.
Sure. I got involved in advertising totally by accident. In fact, I got involved in marketing by accident. I was an economist at an oil company, and when I got out of the Air Force, and then I became a finance guy at an airline, and it was still regulated airlines. And so one of my jobs was director of pricing at the airline, because pricing wasn't an economic or marketing decision. It was a tariff. You had to file a tariff, and it was complicated. Anyway, so I gravitated from there to marketing, became the director of marketing, and then a vice president of marketing at New York Air, a new startup started by Frank Lorenzo.
You tried to start your own airline company in between there at some point, right?
Yeah, actually, I had a business plan for an all first class airline I was thinking about, but it didn't go anywhere. I mean, I got one guy said he'll give me $1 million in funding if I can find another 3 million somewhere, and I couldn't, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so I went into I went into advertising basically by accident. I hung my shingle out as a consultant to ad agencies and marketers, a marketing consultant, and an ad agency. Compton Advertising in New York City had just been acquired by Saatchi and Saatchi. So this would have been like 1984, 83, 84.
Okay.
Saatchi had the worldwide British Airways account, and they wanted the Compton Advertising company, which was a Procter and Gamble agency, basically very boring packaged goods stuff. They wanted them as a subsidiary so that they could run a global British Airways campaign. So Compton was looking around for somebody to help them hire an airline executive, and they retained me to try to find somebody they could hire. But the more people I found, the more they wanted to hire me. And so eventually they wanted to hire me more than I didn't want to be hired. And I went to work for them. And I ran the British Airways account at Compton, Saatchi Compton, for a year or so.
Then you moved around to you worked your way up to Chiat Day, some big time advertising executive, and you were in charge of some big pitches and commercials, right? I mean, just kind of fast forward on the back.
So Levine Huntley, Schmidt and Beaver, the Smart Aleck Jewish agency in New York City, was great. I got an honorary yarmulke when I brought on my first new client for them.
Nice.
And then I went to Lintas, and then I went to Chiat Day.
Okay.
And all that was in about 6 or 7 years. So like an ad agency every other year almost. And then I came up with this idea. I was trying to think about what would advertising look like when you could interact with others? In those days, interactivity in the ad world, they thought interactivity would happen like this. You'd be watching a TV commercial and you see a product that you like, and you push a button on your set-top box, out would print a coupon. That was what they thought of as interactivity. But my job was getting new clients, and I spent my mornings making cold calls out to people. I connected one out of every 8 or 10 times, and I just wrote down things in a thriving binder to make notes for later. I'd call somebody that I reached, I call them 6 months later, and I'd say, hey, so Jack, how'd that product launch go in South America, was it? I just wanted him to take my call, right? So that if I read about an account going up for grabs in Ad Week or Ad Age, they'd take my call. And that's what I did. But I realized when interactivity really happened, that's what all companies would be doing. They'd be trying to interact with their customers to set up a relationship over time. And so I got with Martha Rogers, and we wrote our first book, The One-to-One Future, about that. And we were just very fortunate. That book came out literally 6 months prior to the first commercial web browser, Netscape, being made available. And suddenly our book was a hit among webmasters. And that was in the 90s, 93, 94.
Okay.
That's basically, that was my last bit of advertising, because I went from the advertising world into the consulting world at that point, but based on that book.
And your consulting world was more about around marketing and customer relationship management, and lifetime value of customer was a term used a lot and such, right?
Yep, okay. Exactly. And it was all about basically not just getting more customers, which is what advertising was all about, but keeping them longer and growing them bigger. That's basically it.
Yeah. So we'll get into that in a minute, but first, just to hover on your advertising executive experience.
Yeah.
I mean, as I told you, as you're aware, you're very familiar with Tesla through, I talk to you about it all the time, I'm sure. And
I have 2 Teslas. My wife.
Yeah, you have 2 Teslas now. Yeah, eventually I've convinced you to get one. Well, you got one
Well,
early
I've had
on.
one for almost 10 years now, Emmett.
Yeah, you had your first one a while back. Your next one, you just got recently, but you guys are a 2 Tesla family household now. That's good.
Yep.
Now, just to hover on the advertising aspect, imagine, we just had a week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, the annual meeting for shareholders with Tesla, and someone went to Elon. Elon's the decision maker at Tesla, obviously, and he acknowledged that we should probably start some, I forget the exact words, but he pretty much acknowledged, and he did later in an interview with David Faber, like re-acknowledged that they're going to try some advertising. And he said it should be it should provide valuable information and be like, be entertaining and be like art almost. I don't know, that was his like categorization. I don't know if you saw the exact wording he gave, but if you were an advertising executive now and you're like, oh crap, a Tesla account is up for grabs, I got to pitch them, and you had some kind of in to pitch them or whatever. Let's say you already had and Tesla's taking calls from a number of they could try to do something in-house, I'm sure, whatever, but they're probably going to hear pitches from different agencies, I would imagine. What would you do, in this day and age? Like if you were an advertising executive again at Chiat Day or trying to win accounts, and you were like, top, one of the top, rainmakers in advertising, and you had to pitch them. What's an example of how you would approach this?
Well, the thing about advertising is that it's speaking to the whole population. Okay. Today, we use one-to-one marketing primarily online, and even the streaming stuff that you see. When you see a commercial, if you have a ad-supported streaming service, that commercial is probably unique to you. It's, it's targeted. It's, so with advertising, what you want is some kind of idea that unitizes the whole proposition in a way that everybody is attracted, and that there's a social calling. Usually what that requires is something that's obvious, but only in retrospect. You know what I mean? Like an obvious idea, but only when you look at it after you've seen it, because if it were obvious already, somebody would have already have come up with it. I think Jay Chiat said it best. He said, when you present a creative campaign to a client, you need to make the blood drain from their face. Otherwise, it's not creative. Okay. So whatever you come up with for Tesla, it ought to literally scare the bejesus out of the Tesla executives first. That kind of thinking. And I'm not thinking about the famous Apple computer commercial, the 1984 takeoff, with for the original Macintosh. That was a really good example. But fundamentally, that Chiat's rule is a pretty good rule of thumb for whether it's a really remarkable advertising campaign. And Tesla needs a remarkable advertising campaign because they're already a really, really good customer experience.
Yeah.
My feeling is if I were the marketing executive at Tesla, I would be coming up with programs designed to get people to test drive Teslas. Take a friend on a drive. Take a friend get a friend, because I remember vividly when you took me on a drive in your Tesla, and I got out of the car and I said, Jesus, I have to have a Tesla. I have to have a Tesla.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I've always divided the population into two camps since then. People who've never driven in a Tesla or been in one, and people either already have one or must have one. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you experience the Tesla, it's it's more computer than car. B, there's of course the acceleration and the smoothness of it, of the drive and so forth. I mean, it's not like other cars, not like other EVs. So I think that customer experience is something that's very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
As evidenced by Tesla's very high NPS score.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. So you think, they have this referral program, maybe they re-energize that to incentivize people, like grassroots efforts. I think of it as like me or you trying to get, like, how many people have you had, like, you haven't been motivated.
Okay.
How did they motivate you to give test drives?
Yeah,
How would they motivate you?
Here, let me give you a twist on it though. Have you ever heard of the theory of weak connections? When scientists did a study of how people got new jobs, and what they found was the best way to find and get a new job is through one of your weak connections, somebody you don't know very well. And why is that? Because the people you know very well, you already know all their connections. You already know all their, okay? So
you already maxed out the job opportunities with them.
Exactly. So a weak connection is much more likely to come up with a job prospect that you weren't already aware of. That's all. And that's why that happened. I think a similar, that's my bird clock.
Okay. Let's not let it distract us. Let's go on. Okay.
I think a similar approach ought to be taken to test drive and friend get a friend programs at Tesla. If there's a way Tesla could get people to introduce their weak connections to the Tesla, because their friends already aware, the people you're close to, they already know, your relationship with your car, right? So I'm not sure how to manage that the right way. But I don't think just friend get a friend is necessarily the right thing to do. I think some other kind of strategy. And here, don't forget, we're really not talking about advertising. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about getting more customers.
Yeah.
In the broadest sense. I also think that if there's a comparison you can make, Tesla really is the Apple computer of the automotive industry. Okay, they're similar. Okay,
Yeah.
they're people who think different are the first to drive the Tesla. It's a California-led revolution in thinking. So I do think that the advertising it's not going to be easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to be easy, but I think some kind of blockbuster Super Bowl ad is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way I think of it is Tesla, it's inevitable that everyone's going to want a Tesla soon, just like everyone sort of wants an iPhone at this point, but the product life cycle of a phone is 1 to 2 years. People get a new phone. Product life cycle of a new car is every 4 to 6 years or something. So just by that nature, it's going to take slower to really roll out to, everyone wanting one. And then, that growth is growing, but Tesla's producing EVs at a faster growth rate in a time of recession where people can afford cars less and less than they were before, while interest rates are going up. So all those factors is sort of a perfect storm for why Tesla needs to catalyze a little bit the demand growth at their current prices. That's what many of us in the Tesla community believe.
Yeah.
And advertising, marketing, those are the perfect avenues to help catalyze it at this point in time for pennies on the dollar of what Tesla's balance sheet is. Tesla's balance sheet is over 20 billion. They could spend a couple of $100 million and really drum up, for a lot of ads that are impactful, that really drums up the demand. Of course, like you said, California led. In California, it's no problem. But you go to the Northeast, for example, there's not that many Teslas. People are still stuck on Subarus or traditional all-wheel drive. They're not even aware of how good Teslas are in the snow with the dual motor all-wheel drive. I mean, it's phenomenal. Instant torque, low center of gravity.
Isn't the highest per capita country ownership of Tesla the country of Norway?
Yeah, and it is. That's
Norway
right.
has a higher per capita concentration of Teslas than any other country.
Yeah, exactly. So they could market that a little bit in their advertising about, so everyone in the Northeast part of the United States is like, hey, I don't need to just have a Subaru. I can actually get a Tesla and be very safe in the snow too, in the ice,
Right.
Yeah, exact. Safer. Yeah. The safety of the car is another thing. And the biggest thing I think is like how easy it is to charge. You plug it in at night when you're home and then wake up every morning and it's full.
Okay. Here's the problem. Okay. Those are all really good advantages. Okay. But you can't, if you can't simply go on television and say that message, okay, and have people believe it, because it's advertising. Nobody believes advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. Advertising is not persuasive.
Okay.
But friends believe friends. You want friends to spread this word. So maybe the strategy behind Tesla's marketing should be to educate more of its current owners about its benefits they hadn't thought of, benefits I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah. They already do that. There's we call it the Tesla Twitterverse on Twitter. And all of us who are fans and investors of Tesla already follow each other. And we're all in this bubble together, and Tesla's marketing to us continuously. And we're just kind of stuck and things bubble out. But
there are all sorts of fan advertisements, in my public appearances. And I'm a public speaker, right? Been for 20 years. I have used the Tesla Fireflies commercial. It was created by the fan. It's a Tesla didn't pay a nickel for it. It's a great commercial as an example of how, if you have really loyal customers, they're going to want you to succeed, because when you succeed, they succeed,
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have a problem of a whole category of baby boomers that aren't connected to younger people that are, pushing them on a Tesla or EV, or older people that are buying nice BMWs or nice Mercedes, and they're not even considering an EV at this point. Those people are, perfect pickings for marketing or advertising somehow. And also there's a lot of soccer moms out there that I don't think are fully aware of the EVs, and make a decision to buy maybe they need the Suburban because they need 8 places to sit people or something. But there's a lot of them Ford Expedition.
Model X wouldn't work for that. Come on.
Yeah, Model X would work. A used Model X or a Model Y, a lot of times could work. But I think there's just a lot of misinformation, or not there's a lot of, if everyone had the way I think of it is, right now, Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y are right around the average car price. And if you look at the cost of ownership, they're much lower than the average car price. They're like the cost of a Model 3 is like the cost of ownership of a Toyota Corolla. And so if everyone had perfect information, in a perfect world, everyone had perfect information. Just like I used to say, so many more people would use Interactive Brokers as a brokerage platform when I used to talk to you and I worked there for many years. If everyone had perfect information about cars and EVs, at least half of the people buying new cars, I think, would be buying Teslas. They'd be trying to buy Teslas at this point, So it's kind of crazy that they're only 5% of the market share in California. I think they're 10 or 15% in California, which is pretty high now. But in the whole country, EVs are like 5% or less than 10% still, I think. But Tesla, you would
Because
think the demand would be
EVs are inconvenient. It's difficult to charge. All sorts of reasons. For EVs not being very popular. But Tesla brings its own charge with it. I mean, for heaven's sake, you could if you get behind the 8 ball in a Tesla, you go to a supercharger, you charge it up.
Yeah.
I'm excuse me. I think that Tesla has, of all the car companies, Tesla has the biggest network effect for its ownership. The more owners own Teslas, the more people are going to want to own them because the more valuable the Tesla is going to become.
Absolutely.
As the charging network proliferates and the self-drive option proliferates. So I think you're going to see a tremendous network effect. I'm not sure that's operating yet. Okay, the network effect really.
I think it is. It's just lower product life cycle of a car versus other things. But anyway, what were you saying?
Did you ever hear the story of how Lexus came to the U.S.? You could Lexus and Infiniti, okay, or Toyota's luxury car line and Nissan's luxury car line. They came to the U.S. As imports roughly the same time, the early 1990s. Lexus. You go into a Lexus dealership and they take your details and they show you the car and so forth. And and maybe a couple of weeks later they'll call you and say, "Hey, would you like to come to a dinner?" There's no salespeople at the dinner. No salespeople out. Have a dinner. We're going to show you more of the car. And so people do it. It's a free dinner. It's nice. It's okay. But what Lexus did was they invited a lot of current owners also to those dinners. So basically half owners and half non-owners, newbies, okay, who were thinking about it. And they sat and they had place settings and they sat the owners in between the prospects, and the owners were the salespeople, right? Because they loved Lexus. It was a great car. Yeah, it is a great car. It's a very nice car.
Great idea.
More than one, but it's nowhere near the Tesla in terms of its quality now. I think.
Total value proposition is what I think.
The experience, the customer experience.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go on, I guess. And I think advertising. Do you think that they go traditional TV, or do you think they do like Google search, digital search optimization, or what do you think is the better way for Tesla to go? If you were the Tesla, if Elon tapped you and said, "Hey, Don Peppers, I want you to spend, the first $100 million on our advertising/marketing budget here to, what you figure it out. What would you do?"
I'd spend the first $20 million coming up with the right terrific Super Bowl ad. That Super Bowl is something everybody watches, and they watch it live and they see the commercials.
How about the NBA Finals coming on up in a couple of weeks? Not as big, but
who watches it? Okay, fine, yeah, but you watched it, but
Okay, Super Bowl ad. Okay, go on.
But Super Bowl, my wife and I watch, even though we're not football fans.
Yeah,
my point. Okay, and we watch it a lot of times for the commercials.
A lot of people do.
I think so. Yeah. All I'm saying, and it doesn't have to be Super Bowl. Could be anything. Okay, could be anything. But it's got to be something like giant. So when it splashes, it's a surprise and it's newsworthy in some fashion. It's like a little bit of It's a word gets out, it starts to spread, and then you socialize it. You put it different places. Make sure that people can look it up online and play it for entertainment purposes. It needs to have entertainment value. It can't be just you don't want to.
Yeah. What do you think
Obviously,
this is the most important of all the things people don't understand, the snow driving or whatever? How do you get across the price point? Because I think if you surveyed America, I would think, I mean, if someone surveyed America, probably half of Americans still think, if they hear the word Tesla, think it's $100,000 car, right?
more than half, probably.
Probably more than half. So how do
More
you
than
get
half.
that? That's probably the most important thing to get across. I guess you got to get that across in the commercial, right?
You want to get it across in a commercial, but you want to get it across in a way that it's less expensive, but not cheaper. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you don't want to have cheap in there. You want it to be still
Are
a
you seeing
premium
a flash
product.
on your screen?
No, I don't see any flash. No.
For some reason, I'm seeing a flash on mine. You don't see me flashing.
No, everything's fine.
Sorry,
Yeah.
right?
So you get something across that's communicates the pricing affordability, right? And make it splashy. And the first 20 million, then what do you do? The rest you kind of you try to get it across in search optimization, make it easy for people to look
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. You do the traditional, you do the more workhorse stuff of finding the right eyeballs, as opposed to trying to get everybody,
Mhm.
which is what real advertising is all about, is getting everyone, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what else I don't know what else to tell you on that.
Can you promote the net promoter score? I mean, that's something we were talking about that people don't know what that means, most people, right? But I
No,
guess
no.
you can't promote that.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and that um, uh, I think I still believe that the easiest way to sell somebody a new Tesla is to let them drive one. Let them drive one
Mhm.
for, half an hour. 10,
Yeah.
10 minutes is usually enough, but half an hour is all they need,
Yeah. Maybe like a commercial with like, what about like if they said, go to this link and we'll schedule someone coming to your house at a time of your convenience to let you drive the Tesla, the fastest Tesla or something like
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
and
Like
then
that.
I'll be on that volunteer list and I'll drive to a few people's houses
Yeah.
and let them drive it.
Could be something like that. Could be something like that. Um, um, when full self-drive, when FSD becomes more available and reliable, I could see you putting a fleet of FSD cars out there and saying, hey, um, free rides.
Yeah.
You want to, of course, you want them to drive it. Also, you want them to drive. You
Yeah.
want
You want them to
somebody to
drive
drive it.
it. You want both. They're two different kind of
Yeah, yeah,
experiences in
yeah,
a way,
yeah,
but they're both amazing. So
yeah.
different ways. Well, this is good brainstorming, Dad. I like the brainstorming here on this
I don't
interview.
know. I don't know if I'm going to be that much help on that, but I
Well,
do
we could
think
do it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. uh,
We'll talk more about this offline, I'm sure, and we'll have maybe another round of brainstorming someday. So I guess the net promoter score, there's another stock we talk about sometimes, Lemonade Insurance. They tout their net promoter score, and Tesla's got a great net promoter score. Apple's always had a pretty
Yeah.
good one, and certain brands do. Tell us a little bit about the net promoter score, and you mentioned once to me that it can be gamed to some degree.
Sure, it can.
Does that happen
Sure.
a lot, do you think?
Happens all the time.
So the companies
Uh,
game
uh,
it so they can show it?
you ever hear what's called Goodhart's law?
No.
Any metric that becomes a goal ceases to be a metric.
Okay, like
So
the
there are lots of sorry.
ESG scores, environmental ESG scores with investing. Yeah, I know. That's
Yeah,
an example I
yeah.
think of.
Or like there are companies out there that want to improve their customer service or their customer experience. And so
Yeah,
they say, okay, let's get the NPS up, right?
yeah,
That's a measurement. And I'll give you an example. I once bought a car in Connecticut from a dealership, said that they were the #1 dealership for customer service.
Okay.
I thought, okay, so I'll just try them. It was in Greenwich. So I went there. And I liked the car, I liked the salesman, and so I'm in the process of buying the car. And this is a true story. And
Yeah.
I literally went through almost an hour worth of paperwork, the driver's thing and the
Yeah.
insurance and the registration of blah, blah. And finally, we're at the end, and the salesman slips us a form across, and he says, so just one more thing, he said, we pride ourselves on the quality of our service. And would you say that you were very satisfied with the service? If you weren't very satisfied, I'll do whatever needs to be done so that you will be very satisfied. So how valid was their customer service score, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't really a proper score.
Yeah.
NPS, when it's done as a blind test with a representative sample, and they have a really good participation rate and so forth, there's no better and no worse than a customer satisfaction score done the same way. It's the methodology behind the research that's matter. And by the way, that NPS score is not a percentage. You know that.
No, I didn't know that. You go above 100?
No, it's not. No, you go below 100. You go below 0.
Okay.
The NPS score ranges from -100 to +100. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So sometimes you see people saying, yeah, we got a 30% increase in NPS score from 40 to 70. No, that's like a 15% increase technically. But it's wacko.
Okay.
The NPS score is, I on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend us to a friend? And if you're a 9 or a 10, we rate you as a promoter.
Okay.
If you're a 1 or a 2, we rate you as a detractor.
Okay.
Okay. Or 1 to a 6. 1 to a 6, we rate you as a detractor. If you're a 7 or 8, they call you a neutral. That's how most of them do. So then I subtract the detractors percentage from the promoters percentage, and the difference, that's my NPS.
Okay.
So when Apple has an 89 NPS, that's phenomenally high. Okay. USAA has an 87 NPS. The NPS for Tesla is 97.
Wow.
That was the late 2020 figure I saw. So that's almost unheard of. And when I have a Tesla, when I have an NPS score above 0, it means I have more promoters than detractors, and that's good.
Yeah.
It just needs to be above 0. The average NPS score in the country among all different industries and so forth is probably around 25 or 30.
Okay.
Or maybe less in some.
I wonder what the average of car companies are.
Yeah. I don't know. It's that kind of stuff is available. You can look at it on Google. I didn't. I don't know what it is, but
okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So one last thing, I guess, Dad, you've always been kind of a futurist thinker, and for example, and I think it was like 2010 or 11 or 12, before Elon and Tesla ever mentioned full self-driving or self-driving, I think it must have been 2010 or 2011 then, you had, I remember, come to tell me like some exciting, latest ideas you'd been reading about that you think is going to happen at a barbecue we had or something. And you were like, guess what? I think self-driving cars are going to be a big thing soon. And I was like, what are you talking? Like, to me, it seems so foreign. Like, how can cars drive themselves? Why would anyone, just at that time, it was the first time I ever heard the idea. And I was like, that's so nuts. There's no way. So you are like a futurist type thinker. You always have been. You're like 1996 or 7, you were telling me that there's going to be a time in the future where everyone's going to want to always be connected to the internet, and they will be,
Yeah,
anxious
right,
whenever they're not connected. And I was
yeah,
like, that's nuts. I hardly have a beeper or whatever,
right.
what are you talking about? So you're always like thinking ahead in the future. And I don't know if you still have that skill or if you're too far past your peak, but I think you probably still have some of that skill. What do you think is like the next big thing, just in general technology? And that doesn't have to be cars or Tesla related. Just, I mean, is there anything you've been thinking about recently that you think could be like a big thing in the future that isn't really being talked about too much yet?
I'm not sure there's anything in the future that hasn't been talked about too much already. I think the whole thing about artificial intelligence and AI, Chat GPT and other AI tools, I think it's even today is still sort of underappreciated how significant this is. Um, I do think that the biggest problem our children will have, your children, my grandchildren will have
Hmm.
when they're your age, is telling truth from fiction. That's going to be a big, big problem because it's going to be a lot easier. The better computers get, the easier it gets to fictionalize reality. And it's going to be tough knowing the difference between when just like the other day, did a bomb go off in the Pentagon? Really?
Yeah.
Again? Is that what
Yeah.
happened? Of course, no,
Yeah.
it didn't happen, but it was an image that was pretty realistic and created with the aid of AI technology. I do think that's going to be a big problem. I
Mm.
think authentication of uh, your existence as a human being in a technology world is going to get more complex. We're at facial recognition and so forth, but even that is not going to be sufficient soon. Soon it's going to require a little, maybe a DNA check. I don't know exactly what, but it wouldn't surprise me to see DNA sniffers as eventually as an authentication. Yeah, this is Emmett Peppers.
Mhm.
We've it's or it's a human being giving off his DNA scent, right?
Mm.
So I think in that kind of a world, it's kind of scary because on the one hand, we're becoming kinder to everybody on a gradual basis. We're kinder now to racial minorities, to gender unequal people, and others, but on the other hand, we're also meaner to people that aren't like us. Whether we're talking about um, political polarization or whatever. Um, the moral arc points up, as they say,
Mhm.
as the philosophers say, but it's wavy. Okay, uh,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. Those are my thoughts about the future.
Well, I kind of
I'm moderately optimistic, but I don't think I don't think we're I don't think we're out of the woods yet as a species or human race. That's all.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, Dad. Well, this has been a great chat. I think we'll end it here. Maybe once in a while I'll have you back on and we can just talk about things if this people like this or not. Just might be an episode for me and you to watch amongst ourselves. I don't know if people are gonna want to watch me and you chat
Okay.
often, but
All right.
it's been
Well,
a,
thanks, Evan.
a
Thanks very
good
much.
discussion, and I hope
Um, and congratulations on your success. I'm proud of you.
oh,
Really.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, you've helped me a lot along my way, so appreciate
I'm glad I haven't
your
held you back
fatherhood.
anyway. So
All right, we'll see you.
yeah.